Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. The Canadiens drop another game, 0-2 against the San Jose Sharks this season. They lose 4-2 against the San Jose Sharks at home today. And what was just really the only way I can describe it is just not a very inspiring effort, in my opinion. It's just I didn't really see anything going for the Canadiens tonight that was really, impressive. There were definitely times, obviously like every other game for the Canadiens, there's always, a couple of moments in there that look pretty good and make me feel like, the Canadiens are going to find a way to come back and win this game. But, in this one, there was just not, those moments were very few and far between, in my opinion. It was just kind of a disappointing effort altogether. And it's just, I just feel like it's just like so many of the same mistakes being made in this one, and just like not really having the jump. I felt like our fourth line tonight was probably the best line out there of all of our lines, and not really sure what it is, but it's just like sometimes it feels like, our top line is really going and, generating all of our chances and making stuff happen. But, other times it just really does not work. Obviously, Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield do score in this game, but, those goals are definitely anomalies from what most of the game looked like from their perspectives there. It just felt like, a lot of our guys were just going out there and doing the bare minimum a little bit, especially defensively. And it's the same mistakes being made over and over again that just aren't really, working in our favor right now. And altogether, I feel like it was just a disappointing show in a game that we definitely could have, given ourselves some a little bit of a lead there in that third place in the Atlantic position, considering the fact that other teams are losing a little bit as of right now. But as it stands right now, the Canadiens are in the third place in the Atlantic division with only 2 points of a lead right now, as Boston did win in the shootout today. So again, like we're definitely in a position where we could head back down to the wild card if we don't play well tomorrow and drop another game there. So we have an opportunity tomorrow to make up for it, which is good. But anytime especially when we're playing a team that's not as good as we are in terms of standings and all that kind of stuff, you'd like to be able to find a way to make a better effort out of it and get a win. But in this one, it just felt like the Sharks outworked us for most of the night. They had the better chances, and aside from a couple of odd man rush chances or whatever for Suzuki and Cole Caulfield today, they felt like the Sharks were all over us in both ends of the ice here. So going into the game here, a little over 7 minutes in, Cole Caulfield gets his career high, his 38th goal of the season. Skates down that right side and just kind of picks his spot and snipes it in classic Cole Caulfield fashion. It's his 38th goal of the season, a career high from him, which is really impressive. Obviously, he's had a career high pretty much every year since his rookie year. He continues to top himself. It looks like, barring any crazy stuff going on, he will get, 40 goals this season. Safkovsky and Dobson get the assists on that one. Great overall play just on the rush, and Cole Caulfield just doing what he does best there. Safkovsky gets his 30th assist. Dobson his 31st assist there. Great overall effort there. Macklin Celebrini comes back the other way and scores. Just giving Macklin Celebrini way too much time and space is what causes that goal, in my opinion. He's a great shooter. Obviously, we saw that there. But we just gave him way too much time and space to pick his spot and take it, and he did exactly that and scored. So you can't really be too upset at Dobesh for that one. It's just that we gotta give him less time and space. We gotta get a stick on his shot. You gotta make sure he doesn't have too much time to take that extra stick handle and pick a spot there. So unfortunate. In the end of the second period, Mario Ferraro scores one for the San Jose Sharks on one that, I think it went off of somebody, on the Canadiens' end on one of their gloves or something like that and tipped back down. But either way, that's kind of a weak goal, in my opinion. It's just it's just a high floater. It kind of looked like it was going over the net. I think it got slightly tipped to go back down a little bit. Dobesh didn't see it, I guess, and it goes back down into the top of the net there. So an unfortunate one. That's one that doesn't happen very often, but and even still, it's another opportunity where we got to try to find a way to get that blocked or get that cleared away from the net in some way. But it's just a disappointing one there. And then Colin Graff a couple minutes later will score. Again, Celebrini just taking a shot on net. And this one is really, in my opinion, on Alexandre Carrier. He's on Colin Graff. Obviously, if you look back at the play, he's right on his man there. So he's got his guy, but he's also just letting him, just sit right in front of the net. He's on him, but he's not pushing him away from the net, and that's something that all of our defensemen have struggled with this season, is getting guys cleared from the front of the net, and it's definitely cost us in the past. This is another example of it costing us big time there. We just let Colin Graff kind of sit in front of the net. The puck goes right off of Colin Graff's shoulder or something like that, bounces into the net there. So again, nothing that the goalie can do on that one, but we got to be able to clear guys out of the crease area. Otherwise, things like that are going to happen, either off of our own stick or something like that, or off of the opponent there. And that's exactly what happens for that goal. It proves to be pretty much enough for the Canadian for the Sharks to get the win there. Nick Suzuki does score a minute and so later. He gets an absolute wire of a wrist shot there. Demonov has a nice little drop pass to get a Suzuki, and he just kind of rips this one and puts us back within 2, and gives us a little bit of momentum going into the rest of that second period there. We had another couple good chances that could have gotten put into the back of the net, but either way, it's a good shot from Suzuki for his 22nd of the season. Demonov gets his 38th assist, and Dobson his 32nd on that one. But yeah, I feel like after that goal, there was for the rest of the 2 minutes or whatever in that second period, there was definitely a lot of push. That we looked a lot better than we had for pretty much the entire game up until that point. It's just disappointing to see that the Canadians can't find a way to play more like that more often. We played a lot of passive game, a lot of just skating around and hoping the puck was going to find us, and that's what cost us in the end. And then of course in the third period, Macklin Celebrini gets his second of the game on the empty netter there, and that really seals the deal for the Sharks. And yeah, that's a 4-2 loss, and just a lot of, again, like what I said before, a lot of the same mistakes being made over and over again, which is really disappointing. I feel like there are just too many times where the Canadians are overzealous offensively and leading to chances in odd man rushes the other way for opposing teams, and we're not. I feel like something I noticed a lot in this game is that the Canadians aren't helping each other out in the offensive zone or defensive zone for that matter. I feel like there's a lot of, especially in the offensive zone, there's a lot of times where we'll have our F1, our first forward coming in on the forecheck, trying to get the puck off the wall or whatever, and every other player on the Canadians is just standing around watching that puck battle, hoping that'll squeak out somewhere and find them for a chance on net or something like that. Or there were times in the third period especially, I felt like when Lane Hudson had the puck, and everybody else is just kind of watching Lane Hudson skate around with it. And obviously I'm watching the game at home. I understand it's exciting to watch Lane Hudson do his moves and skate around or whatever, but we got to give Lane Hudson an option for a pass or something like that. He can only make so many moves and deke so many guys out or whatever before he can he's just going to lose the puck eventually. We have to be able to give him an outlet somewhere to go so that he can actually use his moves and all that stuff for something good. There was a lot of times I felt like we just didn't do that. We were just watching him skate around or watching other guys skate around, and it was just a lot of passive play going on in this one. That's really disappointing. In my opinion, that's leading to us just not being able to find ways to keep the zone and actually get some shots on net, some scoring chances there. So that was definitely something that I felt like was kind of frustrating, and just in general, just a lack of energy. I felt like not even effort necessarily, but just there just wasn't a whole lot of energy going on. I felt like there was a lot of times where the Canadians were just not finding ways. Where we're getting stopped at the blue line or whatever, not being able to break into the zone. There were a couple times where we were able to get in and actually generate chances and score, obviously, but there's a ton of times in this game where we just could not find a way to get in. We're not making the extra effort to get the puck through and making the smart plays and all that kind of stuff. It just wasn't happening today. On the power play, I felt like that was a definite, breaking point for this one as well. We had 3 power plays in this game, and the Canadians looked awful on all 3 of them, in my opinion. And, it might be a hot take, but I honestly feel like our power play has not been good all season, really. I feel like, we have the right personnel, they're doing well individually outside of the power play, but when we get in the power play, it just feels like there's way too much passing going on. Our break into the zone is way too predictable. We're forcing passes, especially tonight. I felt like we were trying to force plays way too often. Like the top line, like the first power play of the night or whatever, they barely even got into the zone at all because they were just trying to force the play that they had drawn up over and over again, like the drop pass, and then trying to get it back to Suzuki or whatever, and just coughing up chances the other way, and forcing Dobesh to be sharp there on his own power play. It's just we're forcing too many plays there. We're trying to be too cute with our stuff and trying to just like make as many passes as possible when really you just need to rip the puck on net. And I honestly felt like the second power play unit tonight was better at being able to just get pucks on net and try to get something going there. They definitely could have scored one or two goals on that second power play if things were different there, but in general, I feel like that strategy and just like the way that we go about our first unit power play needs to change a little bit, because I feel like it's just way too predictable for the penalty kills. We're just not doing enough to get into the zone. And once we do, it's just too many passes, not enough shooting, and just did like when you go 0 for 3 on the power play in a game that's largely a 1-goal game for most of it, that's going to kill you, and that's exactly what happened in this one. That's what leads to that, getting 0 points out of this one. So again, it's just disappointing overall game in my opinion. I feel like we didn't really get the opportunities we needed. Like we had opportunities for sure, but we weren't generating chances like we should have been. We like just doing too much passive play, and I honestly wonder how much of that is dedicated to Brendan Gallagher being sat out of the lineup for this one. I wonder if that takes an emotional toll on this one. I feel like that might be a bit of a stretch to say that that's what causes this team to come a little bit flat tonight, but it's definitely possible that a guy who is certainly more than his on ice playing capabilities for this team, he's definitely the lifeblood of the team in a lot of ways. Having him not on the bench, maybe that makes a difference. So it'll be interesting to see how we compare to what we're doing tomorrow. Obviously we have a game in 24 hours from now at home against the Anaheim Ducks. It'll be another great rematch there, but I wonder with Brendan Gallagher back in the lineup for that one, how that changes things, and if we end up playing any better because of that. But yeah, I don't really know what to think about this one. It's just a disappointing game. That's really all I can say. It's just I'm not impressed with the way that we played. I'm not impressed with really anybody on the team. Obviously, the 2 goals were pretty good in my opinion. I'm happy that Suzuki and Caulfield are scoring goals. That's always good. But outside of those rush opportunities that we score on, I just did not feel like the Canadians were doing nearly enough in this game tonight to actually put themselves in a position to win, and that's what would cost us there. So I feel like coming into tomorrow's game, another big opportunity just one day apart from today, to find a way to get 2 points on the board here. Getting 2 points tomorrow, even if we dropped this game here, it's still a huge opportunity to create some separation between us and the rest of the pack, especially considering other teams are losing right now. It feels like Detroit and Tampa, those kind of teams are kind of falling behind a little bit, so we need to take advantage of that while we can here, and tomorrow is a great opportunity to do so. So yeah, that is pretty much all I have for this one, but I really do hope that with Brendan Gallagher back in the lineup, maybe that changes things. But either way, I hope Martin St. Louis and the rest of the guys are really aware of the fact that tonight's effort is just not going to be enough, not in the regular season and certainly not in the playoffs. And hopefully we can come back in tomorrow against the Anaheim Ducks and do a hell of a lot better and get some 2 points there. So yeah, again, that is all I have for you guys today, and hopefully after 2 points tomorrow, I will talk about a big win with you guys there on Sunday.